Sir, you are muted, sir. Sir, you are not audible.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you are. You are.
Due to some technical problem, it was some technical problem.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Paramita Saha, Professor Chandrika Basu Majumdar, Chairperson of Internal Complaints Committee, Tripura University, who is also former Dean, Faculty of Arts and Commerce, Tripura University, Professor Ashish Nath, Professor Paramita, Director, Women Study Center, Tripura University, Professor Sainro Chaudhary, and most important person in this program is Dr. Madhumita Iyengar, who has joined with us from Australia. And also, there are many faculty members from different departments, employees, research scholars, students, invitees, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I convey my greetings to all of you, and I, on behalf of Tripura University, on behalf of Women Study Center of Tripura University, and also on behalf of Internal Complaints Committee of Tripura University, extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Madhumita Iyengar, the keynote speaker of this webinar, which we are going to have just now. And the topic which we have selected is sexual harassment at work, evidence from Australian workplace. Yeah. Frequently, through various media, newspaper, TV channel, we listen, we read, we hear about sexual harassment in different parts of our country, India, and sometimes even from abroad also. This is a topic which we should try to educate our people. Why there should be harassment to any community, any people, any sex? Why? That's very very what I feel is that a very symbol of uncivilization, uneducation, backwardness. We both male and female are working for the same cause. We are equally qualified. We are equally responsible. We should be equally respected. But in spite of many things, sometimes in some occasion, in some place, some news are there, but we want to avoid it. Which we want to tell people that you see this type of things should not happen in anywhere. It may be at workplace, it may be in university, it may be in educational institution, it may be market, it may be in public place, wherever this type of harassment should not be taken place. In any case, we should avoid it. Therefore, considering this, importance and considering the importance of educating people, I believe that Women Study Centers of Tripura University has decided to discuss on this topic, and for this, I am very happy to know that Dr. Madhumita will share about related to Australian experience. That means even in abroad, also even in Australia, also sometimes I think this type of things takes place. So we shall be happy to listen her experience and the Australian government or Australian countries' perspectives. And I believe that our scholar, our employees, our students will certainly get benefit out of this. But my main concern is that we both, male, female, boys, girls, are equal. Our right is equal. Our status is equal. Our duties are also equal. Our responsibilities are also equal. So why should there should be discrimination? I am strongly against this type of occurrence uh, anywhere. And if something has happened, or if there is something, we should avoid it. We should control it. And also, as I have told, and Dr. Madhumita will be also telling that we should make we should make aware about this type of happenings, incidents to our people, to our employee, to our students, to our fellow citizens, so that these things do not occur again and again in workplace as well as in other places also, including public place, market, even at our own house also, in our own society also, in our own village also. Nowhere this should happen. This is what I want to tell. And yes, I know this Women Study Center has been conducting many such program during lockdown period also through online mode. We have done some program related to this type of activity, and now also under the directorship of Professor Paramita Saha, the center has been organizing many such program for the benefit of students, scholars, and public. And in future also, I believe that we shall continue organizing this type of activities through our university, through our center. And not only this, there should be many more important program topic also. I believe that this center will play a very, very important role in educating our student, our people, mainly our female gender. And then only yes, there will be importance of the presence of women's study center in an educational institution. I congratulate Professor Paramita for selecting such a wonderful topic, and also for inviting Dr. Madhumita for sharing her rich knowledge about this topic among the participants who have joined from different parts of Tripura and outside Tripura also. With this few observations, with great pleasure, I open this program. I inaugurate this program, and I believe that this program will be a grand success. And I look forward to listen many such program in the days to come also. Thank you. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for your encouraging words and also being a pillar of support to this center. I express my heartfelt gratitude to you, and I expect your support continued in the future also. And under your guidance, we'll be able to take the work of the center to reach our goal of gender equality in our institution. Now we can proceed to the lecture of Dr. Madhumita Iyengar, but before she does, I have great pleasure in introducing my one-time colleague in Economics Department of Tripura University way back in 1990s. Welcome, Madhumita, again to the Tripura University premises, though virtually. Dr. Madhumita Iyengar is an economist by training and worked in public policy research, analysis, and impact assessments. She is also a senior advisor for the Australian government. She also worked with Government of India, including the Finance Commission. Her policy expertise covers diverse areas from finance to transport, health, environment, gender issues, social justice issues, mental health issues, and many other things. But her heart, I know, lies in women empowerment issues. and she is the founder chair of an NGO named Initiatives for Women in Need. IWIN, in short, supports and advocates women coming from marginal communities with disadvantaged backgrounds. Under her leadership, this NGO has become a quite known name in Canberra of Australia and has received Australian Capital Territory Government's Multicultural Community Organization Champion Award in recognition of its strong advocacy on domestic violence issues. She has also received many other awards, and she has worked in many other important capacities. But today we are eagerly waiting to listen to her evidences that she has worked with in Australian workplace in connection with occurrence of sexual harassment. With these few words, the mic is for you, Dr. Madhumita Iyengar.
Thank you, Paramita. Thanks so much for this wonderful introduction. And before I start, I must apologize for my bird, chopping behind at the background. So good afternoon, everyone. Respected Vice Chancellor of Tripura University, all professors and academics, as well as students and all other participants here. And of course, Paramita and her team from the Women's Studies Center. It's a pleasure to be with you all online from thousands of miles away, actually, in Canberra, which is the capital city of Australia, thanks to our digital advancement. I extend a very warm welcome to today's session on sexual harassment at work, which is a very important issue for all of us as an organization and as a society. But unfortunately, I must admit that it's still an issue of whisper in practice. My efforts today will be to turn this whisper into a sound or a song, if not a voice. I'm Madhumita Iyengar, and you already know Paramita has given an introduction, that I call myself an economist by profession, but a community activist by passion. I thank Professor Paramita Shaha, Director of Women's Studies Center in Tripura University, for inviting me to speak on a topic like this, which is sexual harassment. I also must thank Tripura University and Vice Chancellor Sir for being here and for starting this conversation, very important conversation, which should and must continue till it becomes a powerful dialogue. It's because sexual harassment is an issue that is a significant part of our workforce all over the world. So it's developed economies as well as the, other developing economies. They experience, the workforce they experience in their day-to-day life, but not much evidence-based research or policy work has been done so far. But there you will see a lot of literature on that. It's just that evidence is lacking. And this is not only true for Australia or other developed economies. It's, as you know, it's equally true for India and many other countries. However, today I'll focus my discussion on the Australian context, but I will also present some evidence-based findings from other publicly available research, which will touch on other countries as well. Before I begin, following Australian custom, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land from where I'm meeting you all, the land of Ngunnawal and Ngambri people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and wish the land was never ceded. Now, let me start with a few basics, and I will move to the slide presentation. I hope it works. How do I? It's not share. Yeah. Yep.
Just have.
Yeah, it works. Fantastic. So I just keep moving, right? Yeah. So, so okay. So that's just a picture on sexual harassment that we are familiar with. So what's sexual harassment at work? I would just, there are a lot of definitions on this, but I just picked up 2 definitions, one by Australian Human Rights Commission and another, the definition I found very, very comprehensive. The first definition by Australian Human Rights Commission says, sexual harassment is an unwanted or unwelcome sexual behavior where a reasonable person would have anticipated the possibility that the person harassed would feel offended, humiliated, or intimidated. It has nothing to do with mutual attraction or willful behavior. But as I said, that I find the definition given by Hejase in a publication in 2015, which says the sexual harassment is an unwelcomed or unwanted sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and any form of verbal, non-verbal, or physical conduct of a sexual nature that interferes with one's employment or work performance or effect of violating the dignity of a person, in particular when creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment. So you can see it actually, sexual harassment has multiple layers in its definition, and it includes quite a few actions within the work environment between employees. Sexual harassment is unlawful under the Sex Discrimination Act in Australia in different areas of public life, including employment, service delivery, accommodation, and education. Some types of sexual harassment in Australia actually could be criminal offenses. While the Me Too movement inspired many men and women to come forward with their stories, sexual harassment is unfortunately still a very real problem in many organizations across Australia and other OECD countries like developed economies, US, UK, and all other countries. So sexual harassments could be of actually at work, mainly of 2 types. I think I just mentioned it earlier. One is quid pro quo, and another type is hostile work environment. So what do you mean by that? Quid pro quo is any form of sexual harassment that involves an exchange of sexual activities for a favor or benefit or prevention of a threat. Quid pro quo harassment often happens between someone with a different level of power or authority, such as a supervisor or an interviewer and a junior employee or a candidate. Few examples of quid pro quo sexual harassment is asking for sexual favors in exchange for a promotion, benefits of or a favorable work shift, a raise or payouts, easier or fewer job assignments, as you can see on the screen. And what are the examples of hostile work environment? Before that, how we define hostile work environment, sexual harassment. This is a form of any repetitive behavior that creates an intimidating working environment for the victim. Hostile work environment sexual harassment encompasses all types of situations that cause someone to feel emotionally distressed at work. It also includes various employment discrimination cases based on sexual orientation and/or gender. Some hostile work environment sexual harassment examples are, you can see in the picture, it could be intimidation, it could be actual sexual harassments, sexual assaults or sexual violence, offensive jokes, sharing or forcing someone to see some offensive pictures, and of course, ridiculing someone on their body image or their sexuality or any other things related to that. Here I am sharing a slide. I just thought sometimes at workplace, people can get mixed up with sexual and non-sexual harassments. So once we have covered the sexual harassments, which I have presented in the earlier slides, I just thought it would be put two together side by side so that we know some of these things are actually not sexual harassment, but they are definitely harassment at workplace. So non-sexual harassment can include using racist slang, phrases, nicknames, or making negative comments about an employee's personal religious beliefs, or even wearing a clothing that could offend someone from cultural practices. Now, let's look at some statistics in order to better understand and prevent our organizations from becoming a part of the statistic. So the evidence shows that based on available country surveys, it's estimated that actually more than 75% of the world's 2.7 billion women aged 18 years and older, or at least 2 billion women, have been sexually harassed at workplace. Furthermore, there is a report which estimated percentage of women who have experienced sexual harassment, which actually varies considerably across countries. It could be as low as 50% to as high as above 90%. And you can see the references, and these are the reports and studies which actually discussed in detail about all these variation across country environments. But the good thing is that more than 140, this is the latest actually statistics, 2022 February UN statistics, that more than 141 countries actually have enacted legislation to prohibit sexual harassment at work. In terms of Australia, the Australian Bureau of Statistics publication, the latest publication, shows that it was a publication of last year, August. It shows that in Australia, around 2.2 million women at work have experienced sexual violence, which equates to almost 1 in 4 women. Very, very alarming statistics. Not good. And as I would say that laws are there, but laws are not everything. We have to change our attitude towards that. Now, it means that despite being illegal, costly, and affront to dignity, sexual harassment in the workplace is still an active and pervasive issue, and it's challenging to eliminate. But why should we even think this is a very, very important issue that we need to work on? We need to address it with all our goodwill. It's because sexual harassment is harmful for an organization and its employees. It increases absenteeism and turnover and lowers workplace productivity and job satisfaction. Most importantly, it affects mental health of individuals. Evidence shows that 31% of sexual harassment or assault victims felt anxious or depressed afterwards, which obviously affected their productivity in terms of going to work, which is related to absenteeism I just mentioned. Severe emotional distress for sexual harassment victims is proof that every organization should consider adding mental health benefits as part of their business healthcare plan. The impact will affect the victims long term, and some may have experienced a more serious injury to their mental state, such as chronic depression or anxiety. To help them recover, it's important to outline what kind of support your organization providing for the victims in your organization's policy. Besides this emotional distress for everybody involved, including witnesses, investigations, and victims, health issues, workplace sexual harassment also has a significant financial cost attached to it. Workplace sexual harassment costs an average of, in the Australian context, average of 2.6 billion in lost productivity, or more than $1,000 per victim. This is the finding of the latest report that we have from Deloitte Australia's 2022 report. And this report actually breaks this cost down, which I thought to present here, just to show you that how important is to eliminate or actually minimize the occurrence or the incidence of sexual harassment at workplace. As I mentioned, absenteeism, presenteeism, staff turnover, manager time, and other costs related to health system, legal fees, and justice system costs all add to it, and it's a huge amount. And this money could be actually used somewhere else, so it's an opportunity cost. The next question which came to my mind when I was presenting the slide is, so what? If that's the case, is then sexual harassment gender specific? Do we think, or is what's the evidence says? Is it only affecting a certain gender, like women? And I was surprised to see actually evidence says no. There are publications, they have done wide surveys across different target groups, and found, one of the things I would like to mention actually, found that Washington Post in 2010 reported that 10% of men have been victims of sexual harassment at work. Another study done in Canada in 2014 that showed 9% of men at work had been sexually harassed. But most studies, with the latest one in 2018, actually reported that women are more likely to be sexually harassed than men and to experience sexual harassment at higher frequencies. In fact, in terms of federal workers, it found more women, 44%, and were compared to men, which is 19%, had been affected by sexual harassment. Graduate students, while in graduate school, their percentage is that female students were 1.64 times more likely to have experienced sexually harassing behavior from faculty or staff, which is shocking again, that this happens in educational institutes, compared with their male students. And for active duty military women and men experience sexually harassing behaviors, the rates were an average 44% in women compared to 17.5% in men. So it's widespread. Even in defense force, you have the same outcome, like educational work or the corporate. So before going to that slide, I also wanted to talk about a few other statistics. How do I go back? Okay, yeah. there was a survey by Huffington Post in February 2015, and that conducted a survey on work-related sexual harassment, and their findings based on the anonymous response of more than 2,200 female respondents showed very four findings where I found them quite shocking. It's that about 1 in 3 working women younger than 35 years old has been sexually harassed at work at least one time. Although the majority of these women reported that their harassers were made of male co-workers, supervisors, or even clients, whereas about 1 in 10 respondents had been actually harassed by a female at work. Next finding is that nearly 3 in 4 workplace sexual harassment claims go unreported. Tragically, more than 70% of women who are the victims of workplace sexual harassment never report the incident or try to hold their harassers accountable. In some cases, this may be due to the fact that some victims may not even realize that the incident was workplace sexual harassment, as about 16% of respondents didn't even have a clear understanding of what constitutes sexual harassment at work. And that's where I must congratulate Madhumita and Tripura University for starting this conversation, because it's important to know what is sexual harassment and what is not. And this conversation must be on. Another major reason that most of these cases are never reported, probably due to embarrassment, fear of retaliation, or the desire to move on, leave the incident in the past. Although most commonly verbal, workplace sexual harassment can and often does arise in other forms. In fact, more than 80% of respondents had experienced workplace sexual harassment via something a colleague or someone else said to them. About 44% had experienced unwanted physical contact or sexual advances when they were harassed at work. And about 25% had been sent at least one sexually obscene email or text message from a coworker or supervisor. And the last but not the least shocking finding is that actually education levels don't affect the risk or incidence of workplace sexual harassment. In fact, researchers found that workplace sexual harassment seems to be blind to education levels, as the women who reporting having been sexually harassed at work come from all different educational backgrounds. Another study by BBC in 2017 with more than 2,000 respondents showed that most victims of sexual harassment did not even report the violation. And again, obviously, it would be either in fear of retaliation or if the harassment was played off as a joke. More than half of all victims actually stayed absolutely silent, and this keeps happening. So that's what I meant by whisper. When I started, I said, it's still a whisper in practice. So we need to make it, create some sound or noise on this to make it a voice. Now, next. This is a finding I'm sharing from Australian Human Rights Commission. This is the latest one published in 2021, which looked at sexual harassments by industry. The question was, is there any evidence on incidents of sexual harassment by industry? And the answer is yes. Actually, one can see a pattern, how the sexual harassment is very industry specific. And on top, which did not surprise me actually, that the report shows, the 2021 Australian Human Rights Commission Commission report shows that the media industry is the worst when it comes to preventing sexual harassment in Australia, followed by technology and consulting. Media includes PR, advertising, video and audio production, broadcasting, entertainment, art, design, publishing, and other communication. This may be due to the opportunistic nature of the arts, and the sad fact is that those in power often behave in a way that's opportunistic for them. And I'm sure that could be a case even in India as well. But I have not found any similar studies for India. Otherwise, I would have loved to present it here. Maybe this shows that there is an opportunity for Women Studies Center in Tripura University to work on this. Now, it's time to share some of my research findings on today's topic. Way back in 2018, I developed an economic approach towards sexual harassment to examine the role of gender inequality. At the time, my focus was narrow, so I did not look at the whole Australia, statistics from all over Australia. I used a state-specific evidence, which is New South Wales, the biggest state in Australia. So my reporting on my findings will be limited to that state. So what I find is that Australian workforce has experienced women over the last 2 decades. I'll show some graphs later on, the trend figures. But the gender inequality in the workplace persists significantly. Despite more than half, about 54% of the highly skilled workforce being female, more male workers dominate the senior decision-making roles, according to the latest Global Gender Gap report. The same report reveals that women's annual average earnings in Australia are less than that of men's by more than $20,000 US. I see the time, I'm concerned about the time constraint, so I'll be just going quickly over that. We find that actually the male-dominated power dynamics paves the way for sexual harassment of women at work. In fact, studies noted a nexus between sexual harassment and the gendered assertion of power in the workplace. Well, I'll be just going through quickly. What I have done is that I looked at New South Wales annual data for sexual offences and looked at other factors like average earnings of female workers versus male workers, gender pay gap, female to male ratio in the labor force. And you can see that the trend in terms of sexual harassment in New South Wales is increasing in spite of the participation increasing, which you would expect otherwise, that with the increase in participation of more women supporting each other, but that's not the case. And the same with the labor market trends. We also looked at alcohol drinking, thinking that adult male could be behaving in a certain fashion, influenced by alcohol intake. But surprisingly, alcohol intake at work actually has reduced, though I can see a bit of spike at the end, but the overall trend is declining. And I used a production function approach because that was an economic analysis. So used a production function approach to look at the determinants of sexual harassment at work. And as I said, I propose this economic model using a production function approach where sexual offense as an indicator of sexual harassment is an outcome influenced by observed gender inequality factors such as gender pay gap, female participation rate, and female to male employment ratio, alcohol consumption in males, all as potential influencing factor for explaining sexual offense at an aggregate level of New South Wales workforce. Overall, the model can explain what I found with our econometric analysis. It was a simultaneous situation system. Using that, we found that the model can explain an observed pattern or changes in sexual harassment behavior of an identified group in a given economic setup. Our explanation power was more than 63%. The economic model proposed is validated using 2 decades long secondary database from 1995 to 2016. And in addition, attempt is made to estimate the association between sexual offense and gender inequality. And we did it for 17 identified industries of New South Wales workforce to present an inter-industry comparative assessment. The study findings provide assistance to policy development on improving women participation and leadership roles to reduce sexual harassment at workplace through a better employment policy. However, just to flag it, the economic model proposed in this study is limited by the availability of reliable database, means a longer database, and sexual harassment behavior of an industry is also significantly influenced by the industry or work culture, which is beyond the scope of this, the study that I presented. Needs to be improvised, it needs to be worked on more. But that's not the end of the story. What I suggest by sharing all this experience with you, that I invite you to expand your definition of sexual harassment. I also invite you to expand your definition to include its roots in environmental justice, economic injustice, and political injustice. We are all related, but our histories are not the same. Some of our histories are not even told. We are all related. This is a deeply understood concept for all of us to think about it and act on it. It informs that we live in a complex wave of relationships with all living beings, at work, at home, seen and unseen, that co-creates and interacts with the whole in sacred and mysterious ways. One change in the wave affects the whole. Gender equity, according to my understanding, means that all genders, men, women, and others, have control over their sexual and environmental issues. Sexual justice and environmental justice meet at the intersection of our free choice and empowerment. So, the change we need cannot be done by not addressing sexual harassment and other forms of verbal and non-verbal violence at work or at home. We all need to change our thinking, our perspectives, to transform what is inside us whispering, clouded by perceptions and other factors. Unless we consciously work on this, no workforce laws cannot bring much change in sexual harassment scenario at work. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time and listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Iyengar, very much. I would now ask the audience to place their questions if they have any. I hope Dr. Iyengar will be available for answering.
Happy to answer any question.
To see if anyone does. Actually, it was very exhaustive, Dr. Iyengar. you have defined what is sexual harassment, different types of it, and what is kind of which is very unkind, very useful is you're describing how work environment can be hostile. What we actually mean by hostile work environment. And there are harassments which are of non-sexual harassment, and then also about the pervasiveness of this matter, which we only whisper about. We do not talk in public. We keep to ourselves, and we should now set a culture of speaking out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would like you to suggest how to, when women face the sexual harassment, they know they have the experiences, but the predators who does this, and which behavior can be construed as sexual harassment. Men also should have some idea about that. How do you get them in our fold to tell them about what are our concerns, what are the concerns of women? That remains a very problematic issue in any organization. That is what I think. And finally, your econometric model about why gender equality matters and our emphasis on gender equality, to combat this kind of happenings in institutions is fortified by your experience in Australia. And I guess in India also things must not be very different. And we make more noise in the days to come that you can be rest assured of. But I see even today, people are silent and not asking any questions.
I know. That's what I said, that we are still in the whisper stage, and that's not only in India, it's even in Australia. I see that, but I think they are trying to make sound, they're trying to make a song out of it. The voice is not very clear yet, but it needs, this is a kind of a topic, it needs continuous discussion, a continuous opening up. The organizations, as I said, that I must congratulate you for starting the conversation, and the conversation must go on. It's not you can achieve it in one day, one session, one day. It's not that. And also it has to be having a holistic approach. So as I mentioned, I mean, women are mostly affected, but it's not that men are not being victims. Even men do get harassed sexually. So I think all should be having awareness that this is a reality, and understanding, as I also mentioned, that quite often people don't even understand that they are sexually harassed. So even if you have laws, India also has laws on to prohibit sexual harassment at work, but if you don't even understand and you don't create that supportive environment where people can make complaint. I had not presented quite a few statistics which actually says that 95% of men get away after being complained on this. So and there are other kind of things happen where women and men who are actually victims, and other genders. Even another study is that that LGBT community people, they get harassed almost saying like women at work for their sexual beliefs or whatever it is, but it is that there is lack of awareness. So I think more training organizations that they can organize, they can make it mandatory, so that people, they increase their awareness on this issue, as well as also I think I did suggest in the beginning that it should be part of the business plan. Yeah. So
we also plan to do that.
And as I did suggest something else, that you can start researching on the industry specific impact and others which other countries have done, so you can have a reference point, you can compare how it happens, what is the scenario in the Indian context. Yeah.
Thank you for all your suggestions and your time and your effort to present such a beautiful lecture to us. Thank you very much, Madhumita.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Meeting in future also. Now that technology helps us to get into
Yeah.
action.
I know you have told me so many times earlier, but physically I could not be there. So with the technological advancement, we can make it now more often. Yeah, definitely, I would love to be there. After all, it's my old organization.
Your old students are also here in the meeting. And
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Have my hello to all of them.
Yeah. With this, we can sign off now. Thank you, Madhumita.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you everyone in the audience for making such a good presence over here. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Madam Parmita ji.
Yes,
Madam.
Yes.
Oh, this is Madhumita Madam. This is Madhumita Madam. Madhumita Lo.
Yes. You took so much of time to recognize her. I was feeling that your student is also here.
Okay, Madam. This is Ashish Na.
Hello, Ashish. How are you?
It's nice to meet you.
At the same time, no? Madhumita?
হ্যাঁ কেমন আছো? ভালো?
ভালো আপনি কেমন আছেন বলুন ম্যাডাম আমি এক্ষুনি আমার এক কলিগকে বলছিলাম যে এটা হচ্ছে মধুমিতা ম্যাডাম মধুমিতা লো এখন আইঙ্গার হয়ে গেছে আসবেন ম্যাডাম এলে কখনো if you happen to come to India please come.
It is recorded, guys.
Okay, madam.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. You
Okay, thank you madam, thank you. Okay, thank you madam.
Nice meeting
Thank
you.
you, Ashish,
Take
for
care.
Okay.
Take care. Thank you, all.
Okay.
Okay.